Yat's got a chat. That's what they got to do. I'm Bob Walker, and this is yatradio.com. And today we have with us the originator and the boss over there at Beatles-orama, our old New Orleans DJ buddy, Mr. Pat Matthews Helmstetter. How you doing, Bubba?
Well, Bob, the reason I have the mask on is because, I am in California, and they have a lot of crazy rules here that don't apply to most people. But no, I'm just kidding. I don't have to wear this mask. I don't think a goof. Now I probably won't be able to get it off. Okay.
Yeah,
there it is.
Nothing's going to be spread here today except knowledge.
That's right. We're just going to spread
craziness. So I hope you're far away from those wildfires that you're having in California.
Yeah, I had a friend call me. Actually, Steve Warren, another guy on Beatles-orama, called and he says, "Hey, can you breathe?" And it was like right after I started to go for a walk, and I said, "What are you following me?" And he says, No, the fires. I said, "Oh, something like 1,000 of them or something." But the closest one to here is about 75 miles away. So,
well,
we're lucky.
Yeah. We were lucky too with the hurricane, but Western Louisiana took a hit, man. They really did. Lake Charles and over there, right over the state line in Texas. Yeah, that was a monster. They said it was the biggest hurricane in the United States since 1856.
Yeah, I know. And the funny part there, I was watching the coverage, and I have this TV service where I can see all the New Orleans local stations, and nobody mentioned Katrina at all. As like a comparison. I know Katrina was more of a flooding event, right, as opposed to the wind.
Yeah,
so I guess that's how they were trying to make the distinction.
Yeah, if the levee hadn't broke for whatever reason, it wouldn't have been like it was. That's for sure. It would have had wind damage, but the water was the thing that knocked the city on its butt.
Yeah.
So anyway,
thanks for having me on here today, and you might as well tell everybody that you found this service and turn me on to it.
Good. We can both have fun with it. We have people checking in already. We have Cheryl Andrews Falgout over in Houston, and she's from here, and they didn't have any bad storm.
They escaped it too.
Stuff last night. And we have Kathy Tamburo Tortorich. Hi, Bob and Pat, she says.
Hello.
So, yeah. Gilda Oliver Barger. Actually, I mention that name and I call it either Barger or Barger each time. I'll flip it to the other one. So anyway, hi, Gilda. No mention of losing Morgus today. Yeah, we just went on. So give us time. And Stephanie Cara, she's a Beatle maniac. Oh man, is she? She's
I think Stephanie's a listener too, as well.
Yeah, I think she is for you. And Linda Lutman Millet, hi Linda. And Cheryl likes the Morgus T-shirt. Thank you. Debbie Krieger Bryant saying hey. And I guess we unfortunately have to mention that our buddy Morgus is gone after all these years.
Yeah.
Started out on January 3rd, 1959, and he went all the way till his one-man performance that he did last October 13th at the Orpheum Theater.
Yeah. Did you go to that?
Yeah. I knew him since right around the time he started the show.
Yeah.
He was a DJ before then on WSMB and WWL, and when I was a kid, I used to call up all the DJs and talk to them and everything.
Oh,
yeah, when you're an only kid, you do things like that. And so I got to know him pretty much, and then he started then, and not long afterwards, he started doing his Morgus weather thing, and I would go on the streetcar from Carrollton down to Canal Street and walk down to the WWL TV studios, and he had his little dressing room In the back of the building where they had, I don't know if you've ever been inside of there, but they
What,
had,
WWL?
yeah,
Yeah. No, I
they
used to
had
go.
that big metal gate,
Right.
there was
It was
an
like a big
entrance to a
garage door, and
studio.
they had like the makeup counter and all that stuff sitting
Yeah.
there, right? Yeah.
Well, his makeup counter was right there, and I would just go watch him. He would be putting his stuff on, and
Mm-hmm.
he'd let me watch, and we'd talk and everything. And that's where I met Chopsley for the first time, Tommy George,
Mm-hmm.
and I was fascinated by how tall he was. Tommy George was a biggie. He was about 6'10".
Yeah.
And of course, he had been a St. Bernard sheriff's deputy on the motorcycle
I just
division.
found that out a few years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and he had an accident and he hurt his leg, and he had to wear a brace on one of his legs. And when he would walk, you'd hear click, 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 click. That
Oh
was
wow.
his
Hmm.
thing on his foot. But anyway, I was over at Sid Noel's apartment a week before the performance he did last year in October, and he called me up on the phone and said, "Bob, look, I got a couple of tickets for you." And he lived over at a home in Covington. Uh, he didn't need assisted help. It was just a community.
Uh-huh.
And he said, "I got these tickets for you." And I said, "Well, I'll come on over." And so I went over, and we spent about 2 hours talking about the old days and everything. And I said, "Sid, I have one of those little hand puppets for Morgus. I've had it for a long time, and I see a lot of people coming up with these things. Some of them are selling them on Facebook and the T-shirts and everything." And he surprised me. He said, "I'm not really interested in the what do you call merchandise? The merchandise
Merchandising.
that would go
Yeah.
along with him." He really never looked back a whole lot. I think
Right.
he got to a point where he distanced himself from the Morgus character
You
because
know,
he
it's
had
funny about
managed
that.
to. Hmm?
You know what's funny about that, Bob? Is
What's that?
that when I worked with Wayne Mack at WGSO,
Hmm.
he would get really irritated if you talked about the Great McNutt, and I think
Oh yeah.
I was I don't know 23 years old when I was working there, and and he was the sports director, and I was like the producer of his show, and he would he would say, I told him one time in the hallway, I said, Mr. Mack, I I said when I was a kid, I used to run home from school to get to watch you at 4 o'clock on the Great McNutt Show. He says,
Uh-huh.
"That's an ancient history. I don't want to talk about that." So
Yeah. So
so I
many
mean,
of
it's
them
funny
just
how
turned
they
their
do
back
that.
on the early years when they made themselves who they were, and
Right.
the thing that people remember. Well, look at the Beatles. You should know that the Beatles
Yeah.
started out with the mop hats, the mop haircuts and the collarless jackets and
Jackets.
everything. And as
Yeah.
the years went on, you could see them translate into older people, more
Yeah.
mature people, and
Costumes.
John Lennon and George had their hair down past their shoulders,
Yeah.
and I
And they
guess
didn't
they.
like the yeah. And I mean, especially John Lennon didn't like to talk about the early Beatles and George Harrison too. They
Mhm.
really didn't like to talk about the early days, because they
I
thought
guess
that
maybe after you go to your 2000th press conference and they keep asking you the same questions over and over and over, you just get tired of them, I would imagine.
yeah, I use a lot of sound on Beatlesorama that I collected over the years, and I think they actually asked John and Paul a question about that. It said, "So, what question have you not been asked?" And they said, "Well, certainly not that one." Yeah.
Well, that comes with the territory, I guess, when you're in the entertainment business. Even though DJs, I always said they're on the bottom rung, but at least they're on there.
So, Bob,
So
listen. I mean, we're not sitting here to talk about how old we are or anything like that, but I think I know that you're just a few years older than I am, and
thank you.
that's why I think when I was 6. How old were you when you first worked at Tix? Like 21?
That was in '67. So yeah, I just turned 21.
Yeah. So I was like 16 or 17 years old, and I used to listen to you.
I'm hearing that more and more from
Yeah.
from people with
Well, yeah. I mean, you and a bunch Skinny, and then Skinny worked for me at QUE, and um, who else was it? Don.
Don Anthony.
Don Anthony.
Yeah.
I love my Don Anthony story. Is when he worked for me, he used to like to hang out in the production room a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, was he like that at Tix? But,
yeah, he was a production rat, that's for sure. He'd stay there for hours working on a 30-second commercial.
Oh yeah, and he would clear his throat about 300 times before he opened the mic. Which
yeah. You could hear him in the main studio.
Yeah.
I had to say, "Come on, Don, cut it out. You're making too much noise."
Are you ever going to finish this? But yeah. So that was at GSO and QUE when I worked there.
Well, let's start at the beginning with you. First of all, let's say hi to Tommy Childress. He said Morgus was one of a kind.
Tommy, how are you?
Yeah, he was. And Craig Chilton. When did Chopsley die? He died in 1988, if I recall correctly. 87 or 88.
He was young though, too. Wasn't he like in his 50s or something at the time?
Yeah,
40s.
He was young. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ben Walsh, Sergeant T. Ben Boudreaux. Yeah, you're right, King Bob. Well, so are you, T. Ben. You always are.
How are you, T. Ben? I watched you on the inauguration of the StreamYard the other day.
Mm-hmm. Cindy Lamont's here, and hi. It's so nice to see you, especially since we've been lucky to dodge Laura. Have a good visit and a good time. Yep, and that's what we'll do. And Ricky Shooter. Yep, he's saying hi to us as well. You mentioned Wayne Mack. Ironically, the one time I was one of the actors on the Morgus show in 1986, I think it was, or early '87. Wayne Mack was on there too. In fact, if anybody out there wants to get a belly full of Morgus stuff, some full episodes and everything, you can go to my my YouTube channel. It's called New Orleans Airwaves, and if you search that on YouTube, it'll bring you to it. Well, anyway, the episode I was in was DIY, the DIY clinic, do it yourself. So Morgus was teaching everybody how to operate on themselves, and I was in that. He did acupuncture on me, and Wayne Mack though was in the entire episode, and I don't know how it turned the corner, but at the end of the show, everybody who was still left and had tried out his recommendation, his DIY situation, they all turned into roaches. And on the last couple of minutes, you'd see them in the laboratory, all laying on their back with their arms and legs going up in the air. And
I think I saw that one on YouTube not too long ago. You posted something about it on your Facebook page.
Yeah. So that one's on there, and I got a few more too, and some other stuff, some Morgus memorabilia. So we're remembering Morgus on this sad day. Hey, we got Wayne Watkins here.
Hey,
Weird Wayne. You know Wayne.
I do know Wayne. Wayne also helps out with Beatles-orama as well.
Yeah, Wayne, if you want to drop in with us, I'll send you the code, and you can join us on the video. Al Christian, the retired captain of the Creole Queen.
Oh, okay.
Big paddle boat out on the end of Canal Street. Yeah, he's up in the Smoky Mountains now with his Queen Angela, and they listen all the time. Chris Goodwin is here, and he can't wait to check out the Morgus channel. We'll go ahead and do it. Well, now, Pat, you were a New Orleans guy. You started out. Where did you go to high school?
Archbishop Shaw.
Oh, Frank Dunawar went there. He's one of our regulars. I'm surprised he's not checked in.
I had a cousin named Kenny Dunawar. But I know the name Frank Dunawar. I think maybe he's friends with me on Facebook or something.
Yeah, he'll probably about the same age. Probably in high school at the same time, one way or the other.
I graduated in '70, so I don't know if he.
All right. So tell us your radio story. How you got
Well,
in, where you went, and who you worked with.
when I
And
was a
then we're going to
junior,
get to some Beatles
when I,
stuff.
when I was a junior at Shaw, there was a guy named Charlie Young who was a senior
Mm-hmm.
at Shaw, and I just idolized the hell out of him because he had this full-time job at KGLA, and he was pretty good. He was good in the production room. I learned a lot from him, but then he got me a part-time gig on Sunday mornings when I was still a junior at Shaw,
Mm-hmm.
and did that. Was at that station for a while, but all I did was work on Sunday mornings. So when I had the opportunity to, I don't know who brought me over there. It could have been John Larroquette because he's my dad's brother's stepson. Okay, so he's a cousin by marriage,
Mm-hmm.
and he was working at Mother Radio, and I think maybe I got the job through him. But I was part-time there for a little while, and then I got the morning show on Mother Radio and did that for about a year. That was a good time. Was Bob Coburn, who is like was nationally syndicated when I first moved to California. I couldn't believe it was the same guy. And then there was Bill Robichaux, Bill Roby. There was Norbert Wobnig, who now owns the cheese store of Beverly Hills.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to go cheese store of bh.com, you can order cheese from Norbert.
Okay.
Let's see who else was there. Michael Kopaz, who I think just passed away last year or something.
Ernie Novella.
Yeah, Ernie Novella was there.
It wasn't who was Pontius. You remember him?
Yeah, Pontius.
Pontius, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember. Okay, so Kat Nost, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We're
Yeah.
Facebook friends.
And I, if she's watching right now, I'd like to know. I have this poster, the Mother Radio poster,
Mm-hmm.
that I have framed, and it's on my wall of fame in the garage. And I believe that she was the model for the drawing. I don't know who drew the poster, but it was like this hippie chick with really long hair and and with the paisley dress and all this other stuff. So yeah, it was an interesting time working there.
And
a lot.
Yeah, I get emails not every day, but a couple of times a year. Somebody will get in touch with me and say, "Hey, can you tell us all about Mother Radio?" And Mother Radio on WWOM-FM. It wasn't a long-term situation, but a lot of people seem to remember it, and they ask me all about the DJs and all.
Well, technically it was the first FM station in New Orleans, but started like in '67 maybe. Mm-hmm. And I know that's when Pontius and those guys were big, and they the odd thing about it was that it was in mono, which I thought was very interesting. We play all these progressive rock music and stuff, and it was in monaural because they couldn't afford for a stereo transmitter or something. But that was Dave Wagonboard, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And Dave Wagonboard played a big part in my high school years. I had a band called The Water, and we used to be like the house band, and we'd be the band for Harry the Singing Mailman. So that was always a fun time. It was called what?
I think it's New Orleans Night People.
New Orleans Night People,
yeah.
Right. With Gene 8229191 Sandell. Remember him? The guy that sold magazines on the show.
Uh-huh.
And Dave was the host, and I had a story that when I finally got a job at Mother Radio, I played this song called "Take Off Your Clothes" by Peter Sarstedt.
Mm-hmm.
And Dave Wagonboard's wife called me and told me never play that record again. That she was taking her kids to school when that came on the radio. And I'm like, well, it's marked to be played. I mean, it's like, because a lot of stuff I don't know if they did this at Tix, but when we played a lot of album cuts, if they didn't want you to play something, somebody like took a knife to the track
Mm-hmm.
and dug this giant groove around so that you wouldn't play those songs. So
That was the only way to stop it.
that wasn't one of them. But yeah, so then I went to WIXO after that and worked with people like Jay Douglas and Jeff Bennett and Nick Ferrara, the big Bazoo.
Bazoo, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was there. I got a Bazoo story too. I used to be on from 7 to 10, Monday through Friday, 7 to 10 p.m. And he came on at 10 and worked till 1 o'clock. And there was a guy who was harassing him and actually calling death threats into the station. I don't think, at that time, everybody was scared. Nick was afraid. So he would ask me, whenever the guy would call, he'd ask me to stay after my shift was over and just sit there. So I did a number of times. And I was pretty upset when Nick died too. So
yeah. Hey, look who just checked in. Skinny Tom Cheney.
Skinny Tommy, how are you?
Tom Cheney, yep.
Oh, Tommy's asking. He's a big in the country music business now, right?
Yes, indeed. Tom Cheney is asking, was Kirk Mattel Pontius? Do you remember Kirk Mattel?
I know that name, but I don't know.
I don't think he was. Wasn't it Steve Pontius? I think Pontius was his real last name.
I think Pontius was his last name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So good. Good to have you along with us, Tom Cheney. And Mike DiMatteo is over in West Wego. He's listening too, and we're just.
Is he related to that girl that was on The Sopranos, DiMatteo?
I don't know.
Nice Italian family. Yeah.
He'd be very popular if he was. That's for sure. So let's see. You moved on from Mother Radio to where? KGLA?
No, WIXO. And then
oh yeah,
because it was the same. I was really proud because they interviewed everyone, including John Larroquette and including Bob Peel and all these people. And when the new owners took over, and I was the only one that got a job at WIXO. Wasn't there very long, about a year and a half, I guess. But I went from there to WGSO, WQUE, and I had to join the union.
Oh wow!
To get the job there. So that was a big time. The only bad thing about it is that I was talking to Eric Tracy like 2 years ago, and he said, "Pat, are you collecting anything from the union and the retirement fund?" I said, "No." He says, "You need to call them." So I called them, and they said that they did not have the records of when I worked at GSO and WWL in the 70s and 80s. And so I spent the next week trying to locate people who used to work there in like personnel departments and human resources and all this other stuff, just to find out if they had like my earnings records. Mm-hmm. So long story short, couldn't find anybody, never got any money.
Well, Wayne Mack was the union representative back in, I would say, the mid-70s, and he hounded us at Tix. Come on, you guys got to join. You got to join the union. We never did.
They wanted to make Tom Cheney the shop steward, I heard.
Yeah, I'm sure. So anyway, yeah, but that was one that got away from Wayne Mack. We never did it.
Yeah, because he was the president of the local chapter of the AFTRA.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So
yeah,
he was in, and he had passed away, so I couldn't call him either. So
yeah, and of course your buddy Ted Green was the representative, or he would have been the representative over at Tix if we had gone that way.
They were actually talking to union people?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
They were talking to us, and they were going after Ted Green to organize everybody. In case anybody doesn't realize, Ted Green and now
Which
you.
guy?
both had the same name of Beatles-orama. I was singing in terms of C.C. Courtney's.
That's right. And you told me the other day that he was never really a jock, that he was an engineer type, right?
Yeah, I think he would fill in when there was an opening, when
Right.
we were short of one DJ. And all of a sudden the Beatles arrived on the scene, and they needed somebody to compete with C.C. Courtney's show on WNOE, which was Mersey Beat. So they put Ted Green on and gave him the name Beatles-orama, and he would play Jerry and the Pacemakers and the Beatles
every night while I took a bath.
Mm-hmm. So, and that's where you got the name Beatles-orama from.
That's right. Mm-hmm. I remembered it. I mean, I thought it was a great name. I mean, they had Mersey Beat at WNOE, but they, not that I didn't like the British Invasion songs, but at that time, being 12 years old, and I just thought, I was such a Beatles fan because I had gone to a Christmas party in December of '63, and to this day, I don't know how the girl who had the party got the record, but she had "I Want to Hold Your Hand" single, and she played it like 30 times in a row at the Christmas party, and that was the first time I'd ever heard the Beatles, and it was weird because I didn't get sick of the song, and so then I went looking for it, and so I don't know how she got a copy of it because it really wasn't released in the States. I think it was a Canadian import or something. So, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Might have been one of those VJ bootlegs or something.
No, it was actually a Capitol Swirl thing.
It was.
That's the thing. Yeah. And it could have been Capitol Records in Canada. So it wasn't like the Parlophone from England or anything, but no, it was great. So when Beatles-orama came along, I guess I kept it in the back of my mind. We started the Beatles-orama internet station in September of 2001, ironically enough.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest is history.
Yep. So did you go to the Beatles concert in '64 at City Park?
No, my mother wouldn't my parents wouldn't allow me. I say my mother because, my father, he didn't make those decisions. He just carried out the sentence.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't allowed to go. And, and none of my friends really went. I think there was a girl who lived around the corner who actually went. And I forgot who was the opening act for the Beatles at that time.
Leslie Gore and Frogman Henry,
so
I think.
Okay, it was like the girl groups and stuff. Yeah.
I think it was Leslie Gore. I'm not positive. They had another rock and roll show, a second one at City Park that had Roy Orbison on it and some other people too. And I think it was her. I think she was.
Well, she did open
on the bill with the
Beatles
Beatles.
a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Frogman, he went around the country. He made a few of the Beatles stops on their first tour.
He might have been there at City Park too. I think because they added him for local flavor.
Mm-hmm.
But is anybody that's watching? Have they? Were they at the Beatles show? Because the highest price ticket was like $4.50, I think.
Yeah, and I couldn't afford it. And I asked my parents for it, and they said, we can't afford it either. I mean, $5 was a lot of money back then in 1964.
Yeah, in 64, yeah.
Here we go. We got Blair. Blair Coolman? Blair on the air? Yeah,
yes.
Well, Blair says the Bill Black combo was also on the bill with the Beatles at City Park. And that was, of course, a great 50s rock and roll group, and they did a good backing up. They backed up a lot of singers. They didn't back up the Beatles, but they were still one of the acts.
I think the Beatles, I forget which song it was, but they played, when they played in Germany, in Hamburg, they did stuff from by the Bill Black combo.
Mm-hmm.
Because they played, mostly covers of other rock and roll songs. So,
mm-hmm.
yeah.
So as much as you As much as you love the Beatles, have you ever met one?
No,
Never have.
not in person. No, I met the Ringo doppelganger, the impersonator, who everybody swears is him. He shows up at these fests for Beatles fans. I don't know what his name is, but I met him. That was in L.A. about 10 years ago, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I took my son to it, and he was all into it. He said he'd like me to give him my Beatles collection when I pass away.
Please, we're having enough of that. Stephanie Carey, she's saying that she was at the Beatles concert at City Park. She says she was 7, almost 8, and her mom took her.
That's a very hip mom.
Yes, indeed.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was like 5 years younger than me, so her mother was really hip.
Mm-hmm. Well, did you ever go to a Beatles concert in later years?
Yeah, no, I've been to McCartney like 3 times. And I went to the George Harrison concert right after they broke up in Baton Rouge at the Assembly Center.
I was there too.
You were there when George had laryngitis. That was quite an interesting evening when he couldn't sing.
And his opening act was, what was the guy's name with the sitar?
Oh, yeah, Ravi Shankar.
Yeah, Ravi Shankar.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. What a headache he was, man. People just started getting up and leaving their seats and going into the lobby because he was on for 45 minutes going twang, 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 twang. Oh,
It's like twang guitar on a sitar, you know what I mean? So yeah, but that's what he was all into at that time. So, George. But I remember him having like really, really long hair and a really long beard, and he could barely speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I remember he was wearing Madras pants.
Yes.
That was the style back then, God forbid.
That's right, bell bottoms.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Blair Coolman says there's a poster at Cars of Yesteryears. I guess it must be for the concert at City Park. But Cars of Yesteryears.
I have that poster. Wait a minute. I don't know if I can post that here, but I have that poster on my desktop actually someplace.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll look for it another time, but I'll post it on the Beatlesorama webpage. Yeah, I have the Beatles at City Park poster, and it's got the prices on it, I think. The cost of the tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well.
So, and then I skipped over to WWL, and I was there. And I think that was the most fascinating thing about working at WWL was that I got to do talk shows and interview people, and I interviewed quite a number of people. Some of the ones that stick out, like John Phillips of the Mamas and Papas, I interviewed him.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me I knew more about him than he did, which I thought was very flattering. But
that's probably one of the few times he was.
They didn't have to prop him up. No, he was lucid. He was. It was early in the morning, I think.
Okay. You got him at a good time then.
Yeah, and I interviewed Lou Rawls. I interviewed B.B. King there. So a lot of, and it was like they always gave, and I wasn't full time on WWL. I was the guy that would work everybody's vacations and days off. And every time, and it was pretty much pre-planned. And every time I would do it, I would get guests that were musical guests, which I was happy for because I didn't really feel like hurrying up and reading somebody's book or any of that nonsense. So,
yeah, that was one of the perks of one of the free perks of working in radio, because all these acts would be coming to town to promote their new release. And of course, they wanted to get it played on all the stations, so they'd make the rounds and take us to lunch and do interviews and everything. And God, we met so many of the people we grew up with when they would just come to town and drop in and say hi.
Yeah, and WWL has some kind of deal with the Blue Room, and so every act that came there would come to the station and be, it'd be a guest.
Yeah.
Billy Joel bummed a cigarette from me. That was a big thing. I told all my friends about that.
I bet.
But yeah, and all those acts that played at the warehouse, and we. I mentioned to you the Barry Oakley story about when I worked at Mother Radio, the one of the groupies that would hang around WWOM. She talked about how she slept with Barry Oakley. He hit her in the head with a beer bottle.
Oh, jeez.
And I said, "What did he have to do that to sleep with you?" But
oh, Lord,
that was always fun. And I interviewed Dave Brubeck at Mother Radio, and a guy by the name of Long John Baldry. You ever heard of him?
Oh yeah,
yeah, he was
king of rock and roll.
Yeah, don't lay that bougie woojie on the king of
rock and roll. Yep. As heard on yatradio.com. Yep, it's on there.
He shows up in that Elton John. It was really funny because I watched that Elton John movie, Rocket Man, and there's somebody played John Baldry in that, and they portrayed John Baldry as this gay guy. And I'm like, so I started thinking about the time when I interviewed him at Mother Radio, and he just went on and on talking about Elton John. And that was when we really, we had his first album at Mother Radio, but nobody really, there was no buzz about it, and Your Song wasn't popular yet, and that kind of thing. But yeah, he was quite the interesting guy. He was the first guy to tell me his real name. He says, "Oh, there's Reggie Dwight." I'm like, okay. But,
that was a good record, though, that he put out.
Oh yeah,
the king of rock and roll.
Yeah.
Got a hell of a beat, and he's got a great transition from when he's talking into the song itself.
I know, that was a great song. I got to find that. I should play that on my station.
Yeah, you should,
because it's British. And then I was going to say that one of the, other than interviewing the celebrities, was I enjoyed talking to the engineers at WGSO, because all of them had been at WDSU radio. And Bob Grevenberg, I don't know if you know Bob, he was this old dude, and Kim something, I can't think of his name. He had been the chief engineer at WDSU, and then there was a guy named Jim Barnes, who was the chief, one of the engineers at WWL. But they all had great stories, because like at WWL, Jim Barnes told me all the stuff about Sid Noel, and about how he had replaced the what was that show that they had on in the morning?
Dawn Busters.
The Dawn Busters, yes.
Yep.
And he was saying that, because we were talking about him and how he was Morgus and that stuff, and he said, yeah, he says, but he said he used to get hate mail and all kind of stuff when he replaced the Dawn Busters. He said it took him a while to get established as a morning host. So,
well, according from what I heard, he was one of the Dawn Busters.
Really? He played an instrument? No.
I think he might have just been
okay,
or something.
Or as part of the because I'm too young for that. No, I don't remember that listening to that show.
I don't either, but I remember my daddy talking about it, and I can vaguely remember what it sounded like, but I was way too young. I've got a couple of clips on my New Orleans radio, Shron, from the Dawn Busters, but it's not the group
right
performances that they did there.
Oh yeah,
because they had Al Hurt and they had Pete Fountain and they had a whole bunch of
they had
them.
like a full-on orchestra.
Yeah.
Because he that's what he talked about. He was saying things like, radio now, it's not like it used to be technical, and and we used to have to mix the mics, and and I'm like, great. And too bad Jim Barnes didn't live to today, because then he'd say, good Lord, radio.
Oh, Lord.
So that's why you and me are in the internet radio business, Bob. Because,
that's right. That's right. Well,
radio sucks. I'm sorry.
Mike McCall here on Facebook said he dressed as Morgus in Mardi Gras of 87 and 88. He's got a good memory for years there. And when Morgus came back on the scene, yep, that's when he came back from his
Detroit thing, right?
Well, he came back from Detroit in about that lasted about a year. And the story about that, a fun story about that, although Sid didn't think it was very funny, while he was as Morgus in Detroit, they decided to also do a weather show with him, like they did on.
Okay.
And all he had to do was really do the wraparounds, and they would the actual weather would come on the screen, 50 degrees, cloudy,
and the humidity rag and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, in Detroit, it sounded so good to him, and he knew he was in solid there, that he did a whole year's worth of them, one a year, one a week. Yep. So he did 52 of them, and he was all set. And they called him in one day and said, Sid, we can't use them. And he said, why? And they said, because they're in black and white.
Oh,
we just went to color. So he had a year's worth of Morgus's weather show up in Detroit, and he never got to use them.
Well, I shouted out Dan Milham's name because Dan hired me at WGSO, and he did that Guru S Malady thing. You remember that? He would. It was a takeoff on Morgus, and the reason why he did it.
Oh yeah.
Dan grew up in Detroit, and he saw Morgus on Detroit the little time that he was there, and so he developed this alter ego character called Guru S Malady, who would. One of the bits he did that stands out was he would take pictures of food from magazines and like mix them together, and so like make a salad out of all those pictures of lettuce and tomatoes and all that stuff, and then he would eat it. That was, and then he'd show a horror movie, so it was the same thing, but a ripoff of that. But
yeah,
I hope Dan's friends aren't watching, because.
Oh, Stephanie Carra just said, I posted a picture of the Beatles City Park poster. The opening acts were Frogman Henry, Jackie DeShannon, and Bill Black combo. So
okay,
there you go.
Jackie DeShannon. She's still a friend of mine. Does a show called Breakfast with the Beatles, and because of pre-onset dementia, I'm now forgetting his name. Chris Carter is his name, and he is on Sirius XM radio now. He replaced a girl that did the Breakfast with the Beatles show on KLOS radio in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
and she, Chris. What was I saying? I've forgotten. Talking about Chris Carter and Breakfast with the Beatles. Oh, Jackie DeShannon does his news.
The singer? Jackie DeShannon does the news?
She does the news. It's stupid.
Wow.
Yeah.
She must need money.
Let's get the Beatles news. Here's Jackie DeShannon. Like, oh, geez. And I mean, this is recent. I mean, still going on.
She must be doing it from home. I can't imagine that
she's not going down to LA, I don't think.
No.
She probably lives in the Laurel Canyon or something. But so I moved to California after WWL. and I got married. Well, yeah, and because I had met some California girl in uptown New Orleans at the Cafe Banquette, and when I moved here, her parents were big time into brass, fancy brass stuff for bathrooms and kitchens.
Yeah.
And so I was a salesman of high-end plumbing for a year.
Wow.
Yeah, when I first got to California, just to have a job, and then I applied for a PD job at the Orange County FM station, and I got that. So I did that for a year, and then I auditioned for a television news anchor job, and I got that. And I did that for 4 years, and they pulled the plug on the news operation. So I started freelancing in 1992. And the first gig I got was the announcer on the Mike and Maddie show on ABC. And I did that for about 9 months until they got a new producer. She didn't like me.
No. Anytime they bring in somebody new, they've got their own ideas.
That's right. Yeah. She hired actually, and I mean, this is no lie. She hired a surfer dude that she met down at the beach, who was not really a pro announcer. So he had to join the union just to get the job. But that was the best job, quite frankly, best job I ever had.
Oh, good.
Highest paying, and it was during the O.J. Simpson trial too, which was an adventure in itself.
I bet. Well, we were all just at the right place at the right time when it comes to radio.
Yeah.
Myself, I tried and tried. I had been at WLSU, the campus radio station, and then I started doing weekends over at WSMB when they were playing some great music like I don't know, these orchestras and everything, and
like Montavani and stuff. I used to listen before I started listening to Tix, and before I got into the Beatles. That's the station I listened to, and all my friends would make fun of me.
Yeah,
that I listened to SMB and Nut and Jeff and all this other stuff,
And nighttime, when they finished with the talk shows, they would have like Jerry Valance and Larry Regan and all these people that they would talk, but they would also play music. They didn't do that during the day for the most part.
But that's the music my dad played all the time, and I grew up listening to that, on his stereo, that I can still smell it. You know what I mean? Remember how those wooden pieces of furniture that were stereos, how good, how distinctive they smelled, and that's the music he played, like Jerry Lewis Sings and all this other stuff,
Yeah. Well, I did Saturday nights from 6 p.m. until midnight, and I think noon till 6 o'clock on Sunday on WSMB.
I must have listened to you.
Yeah, probably did. and I had not much experience when I got that job, but my daddy knew John Vath, and they needed somebody for the weekends. So I went in there and I started playing music, and I looked through the library and I would find there's a few songs in here, a few albums that they play on Tix and NOE, like Ray Charles with the album I Can't Stop Loving You, and
Engelbert
Humperdinck and Al Martino, and they would play Yesterday by some group you never heard of, David and Jack or something.
David and Jonathan, man. I played that on
David and Jonathan. That's right. So it was the same song, but it was just by a different group. They weren't going to play the Beatles. Well, anyway, I knew which songs I could go to and have fun. I could sound like a boss jock. And so it's exactly what I did. Every week I would play the same songs in different order and give a little.
And nobody called you on the hotline or anything, Bob?
Well, they must have got a complaint down the line, because about 8 or 9 months later, the program director, Marshall Pierce, called me and said, "Look, Bob, hate to tell you this, but we're going to have to let you go because, well, listeners think you sound too rock and roll."
That's right. You're not following the format, Bob.
And he said, "But I tell you what I'm going to do. Let me call Fred Berthelsen, the general manager over at WTIX, and see if he can do anything." Now, I had, with my limited knowledge or experience in the business, I had tried and tried. I couldn't even get an interview the time of the day with Fred. But Marshall said, "Okay, I'm going to call Fred." So he called Fred up, and Fred said, "Yeah, we got 3 openings over here. Send him over."
Wow.
So I had 2 years of experience of piecemeal radio jobs. And I went over there, and he hired me. Now, for my audition tape, he said, "Okay, I think you can do, but go in the back, and they'll give you some tapes and some news cartridges and everything. Let's see what you can do." So they brought me into the production room, sat me down at a board that I had no idea how to work it. And an Ampex, I didn't know how to work it. And I didn't know how to play the news cartridges or how to introduce them, you know. "Okay, well, there was a robbery this morning at the bank, and here's Ted Green." And I'd play it, and it would be John Reed talking about the horse races and the results. So, but it worked. And ironically, years later, in fact, like within the last 10 years, now this was 1967, somebody on Facebook sent me the file of my audition that day. I don't know where they found it. I don't remember who they were. And unfortunately, with the transition of so many computers every 4 and 5 years, you lose some files, and I did lose it. But I listened to it, and I said, "Holy crap, how did they ever give me a job, you know?"
Well,
But
see,
that's
the key to that was there were 3 openings at one time.
Yep. And once again, it's being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've about run the course here. Why don't you give a good plug to Beatles-orama?
Thank you. Tune in to Beatles-orama.com. It's not just the Beatles. It's we say it's the Beatles and a whole lot more, because we got a British invasion. We have all those solo stuff. We got interviews. We have got Louise Harrison, George's sister, does bits for us that I stole from WTIX back in the day. And also cover songs from just current bands that the kids love, and songs that sound like the Beatles, and all of the American groups, from Johnny Rivers to the Byrds to all the groups that Bob played on the radio that were trying to get airtime away from the Beatles. We have them too.
Good. Well, before we say goodbye, we have Brenda Beelman, who said those were the days. Yes, it did. And we have numerous stories that we didn't even tell you about today, and many more that we'll never be able to tell you. Therese Harris, hi you. Thank you for checking in. And also Patricia Brennan and Tom Cheney saying good night, gentlemen. Good night, Skinny.
Good night, Skinny.
Hopefully you'll be one of my guests one of these days, Mr. Skinny Tom Cheney, working up in Nashville for George Strait and Urban Woolsey. And he's got all kind of good acts.
See, yeah, that's right. He hit the big time. It makes us look like small potatoes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes, indeed. He was in the right place at the right time too. Yep. It was all meant to be. Well, anyway, Pat, thank you for being my second guest. And I'm still learning it, and I'm not the best host. That's for damn sure. But I appreciate that you kept it going.
All right, thank you, Bob,
and teaching me how to do it.
I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Beatlesorama.com. Check it out. It's a great station, and I think I even have a show on there sometimes, don't I?
Yes, you do. On the weekend. Check it out.
Listen on the weekends. You can hear me there.
Saturday nights.
All right. Okay. Thanks a lot, Pat.
Okay.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.